I stared at the two people in my living room, who once barred me from a family event for being an embarrassment. Now they sat here putting a price on their apology, $2,000 a month because I was their son, and my success was a debt I owed. I let out a quiet laugh, not sharp, but the kind you give when something doesn't add up. I looked at them. What about Jessica? How much is she pitching in each month? The room tensed. My dad glanced at my mom. She answered slowly, "Your sister's job isn't steady. And the breakup with Hudson has been hard." I nodded, unsurprised. The same excuses, wrapped in soft words, but just deflections. I met their eyes and said, "If she agrees to pay $2,000 a month, I'll match it. No more, no less." They stared, searching for a sign I was joking. I continued, calm. "Or, if I'm covering it all, I'll need a legal document stating that after you're gone, the house is mine, fully." Silence settled, thick and heavy. My dad stood abruptly, slamming his hand on the table, spilling tea. His voice boomed, "Conditions? We raised you for over 20 years, and now you're haggling with us? What kind of life are you living?" His shout echoed, loud enough for neighbors to hear. I didn't flinch, just sat there, hands on the chair, eyes steady, not cold but no longer soft. I waited until he was done, then stood slowly. My voice was low, clear. "I think you should leave my house." Not a threat, not anger, just a request from someone who'd reached the end of what respect could bear. No one spoke, just the sound of suitcases dragging across the floor and the door clicking shut, quieter than the weight they left behind. That was 2 years ago, the last time I saw them, right here in my home. I didn't block their numbers or change my email. I just stopped reaching out and waited to see if they'd still see me as family without the shadow of duty. In 2 years, no call, no text, no "how are you," no birthday wishes. I used to think they'd change. Now I know some people don't, especially those who never admit they were wrong. I still live here, work, go through my days. The only difference is I'm no longer an emotional bank, giving and breaking under obligation. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that family isn't a place where kindness is demanded and called love. Real family values you for who you are, not what you provide, not as a wallet, not as a fallback. Before I close this, I have one question. Was I wrong to walk away? For refusing to send my aging parents $2,000 a month despite them raising me? I used to think family could fix anything. But after being treated like an outsider in my own home too many times, I chose to break the cycle. Was I too harsh? Maybe I was finally free. Finally, I set the phone down, closed my eyes briefly, then typed a reply, slow and clear. "Hudson, that's your decision. I don't expect anyone to act to stay in my favor. Think it through carefully. And for the record, I keep family out of work." I hit send. No lingering feelings, no further thought. That was enough. Around 10 a.m., during a meeting with department heads, my phone buzzed. It was Jessica. I stared at her name, then declined the call, not out of anger, but because I was done with apologies that only came when everything fell apart. 5 minutes later, a text. "I'm sorry. I didn't think Hudson would change like that. You're his boss. If you say something, he'll listen. Please talk to him." I stepped to the hallway window, reading the message again. Then I typed, not too long, not too short. Hudson didn't leave because of me. He left because of how you live, how you treat people, how you dismiss what you don't understand, and how you think a soft voice can sway anyone. I sent it and returned to my desk. A minute later, another text. "I know I messed up. I mean it this time. I'll change. Please believe me." I read it, let it sit, and felt nothing. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood. The gap between us wasn't in the apology. It was in when it came. I deleted the message and moved on with my life. A week later, on a Friday afternoon, I stopped short on my porch. My parents stood at my door, each with a small suitcase, their faces worn from the long trip. I didn't ask why they were there. If they'd come this far, it wasn't casual. I opened the door and let them in. No tension, no forced warmth, just a choice. I didn't want to have that talk outside in the chilly wind. We sat in the living room, tea steaming on the table. My dad spoke first, his voice softer than usual. He apologized, saying they'd reflected, maybe gone too far, and things shouldn't have reached this point. My mom echoed him, her words careful. I listened without interrupting, waiting to see if this was closure or a new beginning. Then, as expected, my dad's tone shifted. "We're family, Ryan. Family supports each other. We raised you, put you through school. Part of what you have is because of us, right?" I looked at him, my expression steady. My mom added, her voice gentle as if it were reasonable. "If you could send $2,000 a month, just a little help, it's not much for someone like you." I met her gaze and spoke slowly, as if pulling up something long buried. "Auntie, It was Dad. He told me not to come. Said if I showed up, I shouldn't call him my father. She went quiet, her eyes shifting as if scanning the room behind her. Then chaos broke out. My mom's voice cut through. Tell him I'm ashamed of him. Today, of all days, how could he do this? My dad, loud and sharp. It's just a few bills, not a big deal. What kind of man gets petty over money? Another voice, maybe my uncle. Poor Jessica, stuck with a brother like that. Footsteps neared the camera. Jessica appeared behind Aunt Lauren, arms crossed, face tight with irritation. He actually answered? Mom's been crying all day? Does he even care? No shame at all. I didn't speak. I just watched, silent, as if silence was my only shield. I was about to end the call when another face appeared on the screen's edge. A young man in a neat suit, hair perfectly combed. He looked at me, confusion in his eyes, then gave a hesitant smile. Hey, boss, he said, his voice uncertain, as if the word didn't fit the moment. I froze. My eyes locked on the screen, my grip tightening on the phone. I hadn't expected this. Not here, not tonight, when I was deemed too shameful to attend. I stared at him and it clicked. His face, his voice. Of course. He was a recent transfer from our southern branch. We'd exchanged emails and he'd sent me reports, but I had no idea he was Jessica's boyfriend, the one they were all fawning over. The room behind Aunt Lauren seemed to hold its breath. She glanced back, and the kitchen erupted in hushed chaos. Someone whispered, Wait, what did he call Ryan? Another voice, confused. Boss? Ryan's his boss? The murmurs grew, overlapping, uneasy. I stayed silent, lips pressed together, giving a slight nod. He looked back at the room, then spoke clearly. For those who don't know, I work at Pacific TerraTech. Ryan's one of the co-founders. His words were sharp, loud enough to cut through the clatter, and the room fell silent. Not awkward, just stunned. I didn't react, just waited. I looked at him and said, calm and even, Hope your introduction goes well. Then I ended the call. That night, I slept deeply, no tossing, no waking to old questions. For the first time in years, I felt unburdened, not from revenge, but because they finally saw me. The next morning, before the sun fully rose, I checked my emails as usual. Meeting reminders, some accounting notes, and then a name I didn't expect, Hudson Kane. I opened it. The first line hit me. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were Jessica's brother. I've always respected you at the company. I leaned back, reading on. Hudson said he was shocked to learn I was Jessica's brother, then, without sugarcoating, wrote, I didn't expect her to be like that. I'm ending things with her. Thank you for not putting me on the spot in front of everyone. By 6 p.m., my phone was buzzing again, this time from relatives who only showed up for holidays but felt entitled to judge. The messages came in waves. Some called me selfish. One said outright, You humiliated your mom in front of everyone. Another, subtler but just as sharp, said, Your sister was right. People like you ruin happy days. I read each message without responding, not because I agreed, but because I was done explaining myself to people who always sided with the louder crowd over what was fair. I was about to set the phone down when it lit up again. Aunt Lauren, the only relative who still believed in me, was calling via an old video app we both used because we cared enough to look each other in the eye when it mattered. I hesitated, then answered. Her face appeared, lit by the warm glow of the kitchen I knew so well. Every creak, every worn cabinet. But tonight, it felt different. Clinks of cutlery, nervous laughter, and scattered chatter filled the background. She looked at me, her eyes kind but heavy. You're not going to pay, are you, Ryan? Her voice was gentle, probing. I thought if I worked hard, stayed out of trouble, and quietly handled things, they'd eventually see me. They didn't. When you're used to being invisible, no one notices when you're gone. I started paying their bills, electricity, water, internet, about 2 years ago. It began with a call from my mom. She sighed about rising costs, how the bills had spiked, and how their retirement funds weren't enough. Then softly she said, If you could help, even a little, it'd mean so much. I agreed, thinking it'd be temporary. But the months rolled on, same as before. No one mentioned stopping, no one offered a plan. Sometimes I'd ask, Is Jessica helping out, Mom? She'd dodge. Just this month, Ryan, your sister will help next time. Or, she's handling your dad's medical costs, that's tough too. I heard those excuses so often I could recite them. I knew they weren't true, but I smiled and let it go because I thought it was the right thing to do. So I kept paying nearly $400 a month, steady and silent, without complaint. No one acknowledged it. I thought if I was responsible enough, they'd see me. But now, after everything, they called me the family's embarrassment. The room was quiet, and I sat frozen on the couch, phone still in hand. I wasn't angry or heartbroken anymore. There was just one clear feeling in my chest. Enough. I opened my banking app, found the automatic payments for their utilities, and canceled each one without a second thought. I did it calmly, not out of spite, but to hold on to the one thing I had left, a shred of self-respect. The only thing they hadn't taken. A week later, my mom texted, her tone as soft as ever. No mention of what happened, no apology. Just, the internet bill's due, can you handle it? I read it, stared at the screen, and set the phone down without replying. Not to make a point, but because their first words after everything were a demand. 2 weeks later, my dad called. The phone rang a few times, then stopped. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, his voice sharp, impatient. The power company called. The bill's unpaid. What's going on? No concern, no mention of what he'd said when I called about Mom's birthday. I listened, turned off the screen, and set the phone face down. And so it went, until my mom's birthday, 3 weeks after my dad told me not to come home. The party went on as planned. Her favorite roast chicken, cake from her favorite bakery, relatives around the table. Everything was perfect, except I wasn't there. That afternoon, at 4 p.m., I sat in my living room, a cold coffee in hand, when my phone buzzed. It was my mom. I stared at her name, then set the phone down. I didn't answer. My dad called next, then Jessica. 3 calls in under 10 minutes. I let them all go. No curiosity, no urge to respond. I sat there, leaning back, staring at the foggy window. The sky was a dull gray, cold in that quiet way that hints winter is near. The texts started 10 minutes later. Mom first. Ryan, the power's out. The house is dark. Please pay the bill. I read it silently, feeling a calm emptiness, the kind that comes when you've carried a family's weight alone for years. Then my dad. No water. Can't cook. Fix it now. Then Jessica. Internet's down. Guests are here. Fix this. Urgent. I glanced at the clock. 5:12 p.m. I'd canceled the payments 3 weeks ago, right after my dad's words. Now, during the birthday party they didn't want me at, everything was shutting down. Power, water, internet. Right when they needed it most. I didn't reply or call. I didn't feel the need to explain. I just sat there, turning the cold coffee cup in my hands, eyes on the window, seeing beyond the glass. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because there was no one left to carry their burden. He didn't backtrack or soften his words. Instead, he said, flat and cutting, "Your presence would just make the family look bad. If you still want to show up, don't call me your father." Then he hung up without another word. I set the phone down, my hand trembling, slick with sweat. The apartment was silent, no TV, no footsteps, just me standing there staring into nothing. His words looped in my mind, slow and sharp, like a stuck record. Your presence would just make the family look bad. Don't call me your father. For a moment, I wondered if I'd misheard, but no. Every word was deliberate, cold as steel, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Memories flooded in. For over 2 years, I'd quietly covered their utility bills, electricity, water, internet, without a word. No one ever acknowledged it, and now they were calling me the family's embarrassment. I grabbed my phone, hands still unsteady, though my mind was starting to clear. I opened my banking app and scrolled through my transaction history, needing to see the numbers. Power, water, internet, every month, like clockwork, deducted from my account. For 2 years, roughly $400 a month, no interruptions. I scrolled to the total, $9,842.17. I stared at it, not shocked, but something in my chest settled. Not sadness, not anger, just a hollow calm. Nearly $10,000, and they called me the family's shame. As I looked at the long list of payments, a quiet question surfaced, one my family had never asked in my 30 years. Had Jessica ever done as much for them as I had? It wasn't envy or a need for recognition. It was just, if I was the family's disgrace, who were they measuring me against? I'd paid nearly $10,000 in their living expenses, silently, expecting nothing, never mentioning it. What about her? Had she ever sacrificed or stepped up? Or did she just show up, smile brightly, and dazzle everyone with her charming boyfriend? I wasn't keeping score. I was just realizing fairness had never been part of this family's equation. I'd always been on the sidelines. In family photos, I was often half hidden behind someone or caught at the edge, never quite facing the camera. No one told me to step aside, but I always did. Jessica was the star of every milestone, Birthdays, graduations, even her breakups. There was always a reason to rally around her, to comfort or celebrate her. I can't remember the last time anyone asked if I was okay. Jessica, 2 years older, was always the golden child, the one our parents boasted about when relatives came over. Me? If I was mentioned, it was a passing note. Ryan, oh, he's doing fine. Works in tech, I think. My name is Ryan, and I'm 30 years old, living in a small town about 40 minutes from Seattle. Each morning, I brew a cup of coffee, check the weather, and drive less than 10 minutes to my job. I co-founded a modest tech company focused on green energy solutions. Most people, including my family, don't fully grasp what I do. They assume I'm tinkering with tools or fixing equipment, which I don't bother correcting. I've never felt the urge to clarify. When asked about my family, my parents, or my sister Jessica, I give a faint smile and say, "It's been a while since we've spoken." That's usually where the conversation ends. I'm not concealing anything. I just don't see the point in rehashing old wounds. It's been over 2 years since I last reached out to them. No calls, no texts, no holidays, no birthdays. Just a long, quiet void, as if the thread tying us together snapped and no one bothered to mend it. I used to believe family was everything. But 2 years ago, on my mother's birthday, everything shifted. 3 weeks before that day, I had arranged time off work and booked a trip home. The plan was straightforward. Arrive early, stay a few days, and help with the celebration as I'd always done. Nothing elaborate. I just wanted to let them know. I called my mom, but my dad picked up after 2 rings. "I'll be home a couple of days early," I said casually. "Let me know if there's anything I can grab or help with." His response was vague at first, then hesitant. When he finally spoke, his tone was heavy, almost guarded. "Ryan, maybe it's better if you don't come home this year." I thought he was worried about my work schedule. "It's no trouble, Dad," I replied, cradling my coffee mug. "I've got it all worked out." There was a longer pause this time. Then he spoke again, his voice colder, more deliberate. "Jessica's bringing her boyfriend this year. He's a manager, someone polished, carries himself well. Your job, it's not something we can easily explain. It's better if you stay away." Heat surged from my neck to my face. My pulse raced and I gripped the mug tighter. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice no longer steady. "Are you seriously telling me this right now?"